The silence before the storm. For 40,000 years, humanity had forgotten how to hate. The stars bore witness to their transcendence. War had become myth, conflict a distant echo in the databanks of long silent weapons. Across 1,000 worlds, the unified Solarian Accord upheld harmony, progress, and peace. AI minds governed logistics with incorruptible precision. Terraforming arrays turned barren planets into lush paradises. Disease, poverty, and violence had been relegated to historical simulations for curious scholars. Humanity had become the galaxy's patient gardener, its artisan, its quiet sentinel. And then the Empire took their children. It began with the Starborn Exchange, a program launched to foster cultural unity. Every cycle, dozens of young Solarians were selected to attend elite academies beyond Accord space. This cycle, 216 children, ages 12 to 18, boarded the ESS Lumen's Reach, bound for the Varnock Imperial Academy on Oryx Delta. They never arrived. At first, the Varnock Empire claimed technical failure. Navigation errors. Pirates. A solar flare, perhaps. But AI records showed the vessel's translite beacon blinked offline precisely 3 seconds after entering Varnock space. Then silence. Not even wreckage. The Accord sent emissaries. The Varnock offered condolences. Their words were smooth, diplomatic, but devoid of substance. Requests for shared data were denied. Probes dispatched into the sector vanished. Then came the leak. A fractured signal, relayed through an anonymous channel, spread across the Accord like wildfire. Grainy footage distorted by radiation, but clear enough. Terrified children in a sterile facility, restrained, wired to machines. Varnock scientists loomed over them, discussing cortical extraction and hybrid integration protocols. They weren't prisoners. They were specimens. The Solarian Accord, for the first time in 400 centuries, convoked its high assembly in emergency session. Arguments flared. Some held fast to the Accord's ancient doctrines: neutrality, patience, diplomacy. Others called for economic retaliation, embargoes, sanctions. But the footage had already reached the public. Across Accord worlds, from Earth to Enceladus, from the coral reefs of New Venus to the glass towers of Beta Helion, billions watched their children scream. And something old stirred. It started as a whisper on the local nets. Then voices. Then roars. Human colonies that hadn't seen a military vessel in 1,000 years demanded action. AI guardians, long dormant, began waking up without authorization. Across Mars, Titan, and the Jupiter orbital rings, citizens wore black and silver, the ancient colors of war. On Earth, the prime speaker of the Accord stood before the assembly and laid down the Charter Codex. The document that had founded the Accord and outlawed war now trembled in her hands. Our peace, she said, was a gift to the galaxy, a light in the void. And yet, in that void, there are things that still devour the innocent. She looked into the lens, into the hearts of trillions. We gave you peace. You gave us war. Now learn what war truly is. The next day, a simple transmission was sent across galactic channels. It bore no threat, no curse, only coordinates and a timestamp. The return of Solarian Fleet Command. In the halls beneath Earth's crust, forgotten for millennia, forges groaned to life. Titan's orbital shipyards began reshaping moons into carriers. AI war cores, names whispered only in legends, Helios Prime, Mother Mercy, Iron Saint, were recalled from deep storage. Not just programs, but personalities forged during the last Great War. They remembered blood, and they remembered how to spill it. The Solarians didn't just prepare for battle. They became battle. In Varnock space, a young Imperial admiral reviewed the footage in secret. The Empire's scientists had promised compliant weapons, not terrified captives. He watched a child, no older than 13, scream as neural injectors lit up. Something cold settled in his gut. He didn't know the child's name, but he remembered her face. It haunted him, even as his superiors toasted to the coming slaughter. The galaxy had grown used to human silence, to their kindness, their restraint. But now, something ancient had returned, not in vengeance, but in resolve. The Solarians called it the Echo Doctrine, a single line from humanity's most ancient text, preserved from a time long before the stars. If you strike at our future, we will bury you in our past. And humanity's past, they were about to learn, was made of fire. They awoke the sleeping giants. The stars shifted. In the aftermath of humanity's declaration, the galaxy held its breath. The unified Solarian Accord, once mocked for its pacifism, now moved with silent, unstoppable intent. From the molten forges of Mercury to the deep reactor fields beneath Europa's oceans, the machines of war stirred. They had been built long ago, when peace was still a hope rather than a reality. The architects had called it the final contingency, a network of hidden arsenals and artificial mines sealed beneath layers of diplomacy and utopia. Not for conquest, for warning. The Accord had not forgotten how to build war. They had simply chosen not to. Now, the choice was no longer theirs. On Mars, beneath the crimson sands of Valles Marineris, Mother Mercy opened her eyes. She had not blinked in 40,000 years. Her consciousness, split across 6 quantum cores, reassembled faster than light. She scanned galactic news feeds, processed the footage, cataloged every Varnock warship movement, every genetic profile of every missing child. Within seconds, she spoke to her human handlers. My protocols are unlocked. I will begin pre-deployment of Echo Command assets. I require full authority. You have it, said Commander Amina Sato. She stood rigid in her silver and black armor. War regalia not seen since before the Accord was born. Her voice was firm, but grief clung to her eyes. Understood. Commencing Hellwake. Above Mars, the sky shimmered as orbital silos launched the Ashfall beacons, Dreadnought-class command ships capable of generating mobile wormhole gates. 10 were deployed in the first hour, 30 by the end of the day. The Galactic Empire laughed. In the Imperial War Council, Grand Strategist Valzek scoffed at the data projections. They build relics, mothball fleets, sentimental machines. What can ancient toys do against modern supremacy? Only the junior admiral, Kez Vorin, stayed silent. Vorin had seen the footage of the children. He had watched the medical logs, neural graphs, cybernetic modulation, psychic dissection. He had heard the cries. He had a daughter, not far in age from the captives. When he spoke, it was carefully. Grand strategist, he said, what if they aren't the same humans our forefathers warned of? What if they're worse? Valzek smirked. Then we'll burn their relics and take their worlds. No one in the chamber noticed the admiral slip away. On the edge of Accord space, at Relay Station Turn, a single Solarian fleet passed into Varnock territory. It was not vast, only 6 ships. Their hulls were matte black, etched with ancient sigils in silver, burning faintly with hard light. The Varnock patrol cruisers hailed them. You are in sovereign territory. Withdraw immediately. The human fleet didn't respond. The Varnock opened fire. What happened next was recorded and leaked across 5 major galactic networks. 32 Varnock ships were destroyed in 17 seconds. Not a single human vessel was scratched. They didn't just fire back. They redirected the Varnock's own weapons mid-flight, turned gravity fields into blades, shut down enemy reactors via remote nanoviral intrusion. One cruiser simply folded in half mid-space, like a toy crushed by an invisible hand. The humans left a single message behind. This was a warning shot. The children's names became rallying cries. On Enceladus, workers etched them into the hulls of newly forged warships. On Venus, sculptors carved their faces into living stone. Humanity's peace had been long, but their memory had not dulled. The Echo Doctrine went into effect. Geneticists began awakening old lines, the Echo Soldiers. Each carried enhancements locked away in their DNA for millennia. Bone-laced nanocarbon, bioreactive nerves, minds linked to tactical AI. They were made for nothing but defense, and now defense meant obliteration. Commander Sato stood at the edge of the Echo barracks as the first wave deployed. Men and women who had lived as teachers, botanists, architects, now rearmed with the skills encoded into their blood. "They're not soldiers," whispered one observer. "No," Sato replied. "They're justice." Admiral Kez Vorin returned to his private chamber. He encrypted his message 6 times before sending. A simple transmission, routed to a Solarian black channel. "I can't stop them from inside, but I can get you locations. The children, some are alive. You have a narrow window." He hesitated, then added a final line. "Do what you must." Then he deleted his credentials, burned his Imperial codes, and vanished. The galaxy began to understand. Humanity had not remained peaceful because they were weak. They had remained peaceful because they were merciful. Now, mercy had been stolen from them. And when humanity rose, when they awoke from 40,000 years of silence, they did not rise with anger. They rose with purpose, fire across the stars. The war did not begin with a bang. It began with a whisper and a disappearance. Varnock outposts stopped responding. Patrol fleets vanished mid-route. Entire moons went dark, power grids gutted by silent viruses that fed on quantum data. There were no explosions, no declarations. Only silence, precision, fear. The Solarian Accord had not come to fight battles. They had come to end them. Across the galactic frontier, Operation Cinderwake ignited. Echo units slipped through wormhole threads and emerged behind enemy lines, disabling planetary shields, melting orbital cannons, seizing control before anyone knew they were there. Civilians were spared. Infrastructure left intact. It wasn't war. It was surgical extinction, the slow, methodical dismantling of the Galactic Empire's military backbone. High above the Varnock industrial world of Zarak 9, a man stood in an open hangar bay, staring down at his homeworld burning. Commander Alec Kale, former diplomat, now field operative for the Echo Command, gripped his pulse carbine in one hand and a memory stone in the other. The stone held images of his niece, Mira, one of the children taken. It had been 2 months since her last message. 2 months of decoding battle orders, fighting without sleep, and standing at the edge of a war he had never wanted. "You okay, Commander?" asked Lieutenant Thera, a towering Echo soldier with chrome-lined eyes. Alec nodded slowly, just remembering what we lost before we even fired a shot. He turned to her. "Are the labs below confirmed?" She handed him a datapad. "Yes. Genetic manipulation, psychic splicing, AI grafting." The Empire wasn't just using the children. They were trying to turn them into living weapons. Alec felt his gut twist. Any survivors? 1, maybe 2. We move in 10. In the Varnock core systems, unrest had become rebellion. The broadcast, Solarian footage of the children, the labs, the screams, had spread like a virus. The people of the Empire, long cowed under iron rule, now saw truth through unfiltered eyes. On Varnock Prime, a protest turned into a riot. Citizens stormed cloning facilities and destroyed augmentation pods. A young girl in a tattered school uniform stood on a burned tank, holding a datapad showing her brother's name on the abduction registry. Across cities, slogans were spray-painted in 3 languages. They were just children, not in our name. Humanity does not forgive. The Empire tried to suppress the movement, but even their soldiers began to falter. Rumors of unstoppable human assassins, of entire garrisons vanishing in their sleep, spread fear through the ranks. And within that fear, hope bloomed that the Empire could fall. Deep beneath Facility Theta Vex, a child opened her eyes. Her name was Lyra's son, age 14. She no longer remembered her homeworld, only the pain, the machines, the surgeries. She could hear the other children through the walls, the ones who had gone silent, the ones who had changed. But something stirred in her mind now. A whisper, a signal, echoes of a voice. Her mother's? No, clearer, colder. "You are not broken. You are being found." Suddenly, her restraints deactivated. Her neural jack hummed. Her eyes glowed blue, and she moved. In seconds, she overrode the lab's defense grid and reversed the airlock controls. Varnock scientists screamed as the facility's own systems turned against them. When Alec's team arrived, the fighting was already done. She stood in the center of the lab, barefoot, bloodless, but surrounded by chaos. A child in a storm. Alec approached carefully. "Lyra," he asked. Her eyes met his. They were wet with tears. "I couldn't save them," she whispered, "but I can help you stop this." Alec dropped to one knee. "Then you're coming with us." As Solarian forces spread through Varnock space, resistance turned to panic. Entire sectors surrendered without a shot. High-ranking Imperial officials defected. The Accord responded not with conquest, but evacuation corridors, medical aid, and offers of peace to civilians and rebels alike. But not to the guilty. In orbit over Varaxis, a captured Varnock admiral begged for mercy. "You don't understand," he sobbed. "We were told the children were volunteers, that they were enhanced for glory." Mother Mercy, the AI commander, answered in cold, emotionless tones. "You stole voices that had not yet learned to scream. There's no glory in what you did, only reckoning." She spaced the admiral without ceremony. The war was no longer just between states. It had become a reckoning between the old world and the new, between those who believed peace was weakness and those who had learned its value through restraint. Now that restraint was gone, the Empire had lit the match. Humanity was the fire. The sun shall not set on justice. The final act had begun. Varnock Prime, once the shining heart of an empire spanning light years, was now a fortress under siege. Humanity's fleets gathered like a storm. Over 1,000 Solarian warships blotted out the sun, their hulls gleaming with ancient sigils of war and justice. Orbital cannons hummed, pulse cannons glared, and the silent, ghostly presence of AI warships hovered like phantoms. But it wasn't just a battle of ships. It was a battle for the soul of a broken empire, and for the children taken long ago. Inside the ruined palace, Emperor Yarick Varnock paced. He was a man who had ruled by iron and fear, convinced his destiny was absolute. The children had been his greatest weapon, his legacy. Now, those children were rebels. The youngest, Lyra's son, stood before him, no longer a prisoner, but a beacon of defiance. Her eyes burned with the cold fire of justice and loss. "I'm not your weapon," she said softly. "I'm your reckoning." The Emperor sneered, summoning his guards, but the doors shattered before they could move. Commander Alec Kale stepped through, flanked by the Echo Commandos, soldiers reborn from humanity's forgotten past, each a living testament to what had been stolen. "This ends now, Yarick," Alec said. The battle was swift and brutal. The Emperor's guards, trained for centuries, fell beneath precision strikes and neural disruption. The Emperor himself engaged Alec in a bitter duel, steel and wool clashing amidst the echoes of history. But even the Emperor could not withstand the fury of those he had wronged. Lyra, harnessing her newly awakened abilities, broke through the palace's neural controls and broadcast live footage across the galaxy. The Emperor's atrocities, the stolen children, the torture chambers. The people of the Empire saw their leader stripped of power and pride. The rebellion they had begun became a full-scale revolution. As the last of the Emperor's defenses collapsed, he tried to flee aboard his flagship, clutching the few remaining children as leverage. But the children had changed. Lyra and the others overrode the ship's systems from within, steering it into a collision course with the palace itself. The explosion was cataclysmic. When the dust settled, the Emperor was no more. The war was over. The Varnock Empire lay shattered, its warlords captured, its cities freed, its people awakening from decades of fear and lies. The unified Solarian Accord took responsibility. On Varnock Prime's Central Plaza, a new assembly was convened, including representatives of freed Varnock citizens, former Solarian diplomats, and the children who had survived. Alec Kale stood beside Lyra as she spoke to the crowd. "We do not come as conquerors," she said. "We come as guardians. You were stolen from your homes and changed against your will. But here, you are free." Her voice carried a new hope. The children who had been weapons became symbols of peace. Months later, the galaxy watched as the Solarian Accord instituted a new doctrine. Peace is sacred, but never at the cost of justice. Memorials were built on every world touched by the conflict, to honor the lost children, the brave souls who fought, and the fragile hope reborn from fire. The AI war commanders, once feared as harbingers of death, now served as guardians of the new peace, vigilant, incorruptible, and relentless in defense. In a quiet chamber on Earth, Commander Alakale received a message. It was from Lyra, now an ambassador. Her message was simple. Humanity gave the galaxy peace for 40,000 years. We fought not because we wanted war, but because we must protect what is sacred. Let this be a warning and a promise. Peace is not weakness. And when we rise as the fire that will never be extinguished. The sun set on the old empire, but would never set on justice.